George?
How you doing?
Good. You've been sitting here for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Probably have a lot you want to explain to the jury.
Yes, sir.
Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Where were you born?
Hampton, Virginia.
Hampton, Virginia?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other cities or names that Hampton, Virginia goes by?
Newport News.
Newport News?
Yes, sir.
And what part of the state of Virginia is that in?
It's the far southeast side of Virginia on the Atlantic Ocean side.
A lot of seafood down there?
Oh, yes, sir.
And what was your mom's name?
Sherry and Diane Burch.
What did she do for a living?
She was a beautician.
How about your dad? What was his name?
George Steven Burch, Sr.
So you're the junior?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
No, I was the only child.
Okay. And those parents you just described, were those your biological parents?
No, sir. I was adopted when I was a week old.
Okay, so you've never actually met your biological parents?
No, sir.
And what did your dad do for a living?
He was head supervisor of an insurance firm.
So like a salesman or?
He oversaw all the other salesmen also, but yes, essentially.
Mr. Burch, can you pull that microphone closer to you, a little right in front of you then? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So going back to Hampton, Virginia, or Newport News, could you describe that community as you grew up in it?
Very family orientated, tight-knit community, sports.
Did you play sports?
Yes, sir.
What kind of sports did you play?
Football, basketball, and baseball.
And did you start that at a young age?
About 5.
Pretty young?
As soon as I could get on the field, pretty much.
Okay, the sports were big down there.
Yes, sir.
What about the size of Newport News or Hampton? Is it larger than Green Bay?
Yes, sir, definitely.
When you were a kid, how does that community compare to Green Bay as you know Green Bay?
It was pretty much a lot like it is now here. Tight-knit, everybody's cares about everybody. Everybody into sports, back sports, high school sports, things like that.
So going back to just your family, did you guys have a house or did you live in an apartment?
A house.
And that was officially within Hampton, Virginia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So was it just you, your mom, and your dad?
And my grandfather ended up living with us when he got sick.
Yeah. Okay. When was that?
I was probably about 3 or 4, I would guess, roughly. Pretty much my whole life there, he was around.
And was he working at that time or what?
No, he was retired. He had Alzheimer's, so my dad decided to take care of his father, and we all just helped.
Were you close with your grandfather?
Oh, yes, sir.
And what did he do prior to him getting sick?
He was a Mopar mechanic for 31 years.
Okay. Did you have other grandparents besides him?
Ones that lived away, yes.
Okay. How about aunts or uncles? Did you have a large extended family?
Somewhat, yes, sir. A lot of them traveled around. My grandfather was a preacher, and my one uncle was a missionary. He's been in Africa for like 30 years now.
So growing up, were you involved in, I guess, your grandfather's church? Was it your grandfather or your uncle?
Grandfather, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any family pets?
We had quite a few. We had dogs, and we had large exotic birds.
Like what?
African greys, blue macaws, blue front Amazons, cockatoos.
All at the same time?
Somewhat at times. It was almost like a jungle sometimes.
Okay. And you said you had dogs too?
Yes, sir.
What kind of dogs did you guys have?
My dad bred Rottweilers, and he also showed poodles.
What do you mean by showed poodles?
He dog competitions and stuff for people. He would groom them and would take them and show them.
So, as far as being a kid, you said you played sports for fun?
Yes, sir.
What else did you do for fun?
Hung out in the neighborhood, I guess. Pretty much sports was mainly a lot of things because where I'm from at 5 years old, you start playing sports, and that's, if there's a sport to play, normally you're in it. That's the big thing. We don't have a professional team, so it's a big emphasis on local sports and colleges and things like that.
Now, I guess, is Hampton or Newport News? I know you said it's by the ocean, or is there
Right next to the Atlantic Ocean.
So there's a lot of water around that area?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you go fishing a lot?
Growing up, every weekend that we could get out in a boat, we normally were on a Saturday or Sunday.
You said we?
It was always me, my grandfather, and my father.
And you would actually go out on the ocean?
Yes, sir.
What kind of fish do you catch?
Flounder, trout, croaker, all different types.
And has that kind of stayed with you throughout your life?
Yes, sir. I've pretty much enjoyed fishing my whole life.
As a kid, did you go to school?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you go to school?
Up until 4th grade, I went to a private school. Then after that, I ended up going to fundamental schools. It's a school where you have to be selected to go to the school. You can't just go to the school. And then I went to a public high school.
So you said you went to a private school, I guess kindergarten through, did you say 4th grade?
Yes, sir.
Is that how the schools are set up down there? Or?
It's K through 5, 6th through 8th, and then 9th through senior year.
Okay. So you went to the private school until 4th grade?
Yes, sir.
Then you said you went to a fundamental school?
It's pretty much a school. You can't just go there because you want to go there. You have to be selected to go to the schools.
And then you said you went to a public high school?
I went to Bethel High School.
Did you play sports throughout that whole time?
Yes, sir.
And again, what sports did you play?
Football, basketball, and baseball.
Okay. What was your favorite out of those?
Probably a tie between baseball and football.
What positions did you play in baseball?
Pitcher, third, and first.
Probably not at the same time?
No.
What did you play more often?
Pitcher and first.
Okay. Rotating innings or something like that?
Pretty much when I wasn't pitching, or you can only pitch a certain amount of innings. So when my innings were up, I would move to first.
And you also said you played football?
Yes, sir.
And which side of the ball did you play on?
Both. I played tight end for offense, and I started off at defensive end and moved to linebacker.
So those are positions usually occupied by bigger guys.
Yes, sir.
Would you consider yourself a bigger guy?
Larger than average.
Okay. You got any nicknames?
Big country.
When did you get that nickname?
When I was 6 years old.
I guess while we're on that, do most of your friends call you George, or do they call you something else?
Most people call me Big Country. Like I said, I've had it growing up playing sports my whole life, and it's just always stuck. That's what the average person calls me. If not, they call me Steve. And if they call me Stevie, that means I've known him since I was real little.
Did you work in high school?
Yes, sir. I worked. My first actual job was when I was 8 years old. I got a gas can and a lawnmower for my 8th birthday.
Why don't you tell us more about that?
Me and my father had made a deal that anything I wanted, as long as I paid for half, that he would pay for the other half. So I cut local lawns and things like that.
So your dad, you said, got you the lawnmower and the gas to get you started?
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you said you did that?
8.
And then did you say you cut kind of the lawns?
Neighborhood lawns, clean gutters, rake leaves, whatever needed to be done. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan at the time, and all his stuff were expensive. My dad didn't believe in paying more than $10 for a pair of jeans. So,
did your dad help you, or at least in the beginning when you were doing that stuff?
yes, sir. My whole life growing up, he helped me.
Kind of showed you how to do that?
He taught me how to work, just to work hard and have a good work ethic.
You close with your dad?
My best friend.
So when you were in high school, were you still doing lawn care and landscaping?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any other jobs?
I started when I was 13 as a dishwasher in a restaurant.
What was the name of that restaurant?
There's 2 of them. They're right next door to each other. One was Sammy and Nick's, and one was Captain George's Seafood.
So when you say they're right next door to each other, is that like on a downtown area or?
Where I lived, my house was 2 doors down from a main highway or main road, and they were on the main road.
And you said the first one was at Sammy and Nick's?
Sammy and Nick's, right. It was a Greek restaurant.
And what did you say you did there?
I would start off as a dishwasher. And after a couple months, I started paying more attention to the cooking aspects of everything, and they noticed I was paying attention and learning, and they ended up moving me to a cook.
And was that, I guess, how soon did that happen? Were you still 14 or?
14, roughly, yes, sir.
And the other restaurant, what was?
It was Captain George's. It was a prestigious, high-end seafood restaurant.
And what did you do there?
Started off dishwasher and ended up moving to a line cook.
And what exactly is a line cook?
Predominantly is anything that needs to be done to get the food out the window, honestly. It could be fries, salad, dessert, whatever needs to be done to sell the food.
And while you were working those two jobs, had you given up on the, I guess, personal lawn care business?
No, whenever there wasn't other things going on like sports or anything like that, I helped my father. We had a little side business we did when he wasn't working on the weekends.
Okay. So you were essentially in school, playing sports, and then working those jobs at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Now, you described the area you grew up in. It's fair to say you said it's kind of similar to how Green Bay is?
Yes, sir.
As you grew up, did that start to change?
Yes, sir, dramatically after a while.
What do you mean?
A lot of crime, drugs took over, things like that.
Did it continue to get worse as you got older?
It definitely escalated, worse and worse.
While we're kind of on that subject, George, have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
5.
Now, after high school, were you still working at Sam and Nick's and I forget the name of the other one?
Captain George's?
Yeah, were you still
no, sir. I ended up working at other restaurants.
Which other restaurants?
TGI Fridays and Olive Garden.
What'd you do at Fridays?
Was the lead grill cook.
So what does a grill cook do?
Pretty much prepares all the grilled meat and everything that would come off the grill area.
Okay. And what about at Olive Garden?
Saute cook.
So what's a saute cook do?
3/4 of Olive Garden's menu is saute. It's you make the sauce, you prepare everything that comes out. It's the guy you see sweating with all the burners and fire going everywhere with the saute pans.
Do you like that kind of work?
I actually love it.
Why is that?
It's a little bit of self-gratification. You get to see people's look when they get the food and try it and like it and things like that. And you keep busy. You're always doing something.
Were those your primary jobs after high school, or at least initially?
Yes, sir.
Have you been married?
Yes, sir.
What was the name of your wife?
Mary Elizabeth. She go by Beth.
Kind of an abbreviated
Yes, sir.
middle name. So when did you meet Beth?
I want to say it was around April of 2000.
And how did you meet her?
Her cousins were a longtime family friend of mine. I've known them since we were in like 5th grade. And she had came to visit, come visit the family and ended up staying for a while.
And you said that was in, you think, around 2000?
It was in 2000. I want to say April or May at the latest.
So were you had cousins in the area? Were you close with your cousins?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, were they your cousins or her cousins?
They were her cousins.
Okay. So your friends.
Right.
Her cousins.
Yeah, I grew up with them, went to school with them, played ball with them.
And at some point in around 2000, she came to Hampton, Newport.
She came to visit in January, February time period, roughly. And I ended up running into her at their house.
And you said she was visiting. Where was she visiting from?
She's originally from Newburgh, New York.
Did she come down with her family, or was it just her?
No, she came to visit, and then ended up staying for quite a while. She liked it here. I think she kind of just wanted to get away from her parents for a little while.
Did you guys end up hitting it off?
Yes, sir.
So did you guys stay together in Virginia?
Yes, sir. We, I guess, officially started dating end of, let's see, May 30th was kind of official when we really started dating, because I remember we kind of tried to get married around that date if possible.
So and as I said, so you did end up marrying her?
Yes.
Did you get married in Virginia?
No, we got married in New York.
So how did you guys go from Virginia to New York?
That's where she was originally from.
That's where she was visiting?
Visiting from, right.
Visiting from?
Yes, sir.
And her parents lived in New York?
Yes, sir.
So you agreed to, I guess, go back to New York, be closer to her family?
But right, based pretty much for us to start our life somewhere different, I guess.
And why did you guys want to start your life somewhere different?
Where I'm from was rapidly getting worse. We didn't see it as the perfect place to raise a child. If we decided to go that route, it was a lot of violence and things were going on. People were getting shot and things stabbed and like that all the time.
What is all the time?
Pretty much almost every day you'd see it in the news. Someone was getting stabbed or shot.
So you guys decided to move to, was it Newburgh?
Newburgh, New York, yes, sir. It's about 40 minutes north of New York City.
Did you know anything about Newburgh before you moved there?
Not a single thing.
Did she, I guess, have to do some convincing to get you to move there?
She kind of baited me, I guess the best way to put it, because her family lives on one of the most prestigious bass fishing lakes in New York.
And what lake is that?
It's Orange Lake.
And what kind of fishing did you know happened in Orange Lake?
A lot of bass fishing, largemouth, smallmouth. The best part about it was that it was not open to the public, so just anyone couldn't come. You actually had to live on the lake or have lake rights through a family to even touch the water.
And her family lived on that lake?
Yes, sir.
So you agreed to go to New York with her?
Yes, sir.
In part motivated by the potential fishing opportunities?
Right.
So did you guys move in with her parents?
No, we got our own apartment.
Was that close to her parents?
About 15 minutes away, roughly. It's in the same city.
Had you met her parents prior to moving there?
No, sir.
So she came back from Virginia with you, I guess?
Yeah, they laid down a couple hurdles, but yes, sir.
Did you have a job lined up when you moved to New York?
No, sir.
And I know you said you didn't really know the area. Did you know anybody there?
Just her.
And her family? Well, you didn't know her.
I hadn't even met her family when I got there.
Did she have a job lined up?
Yeah, she was a waitress, a server.
So you said you guys had an apartment?
Yes, sir.
You had pre-planned that?
Well, we had saved money and everything for the move and pre-planned it when we moved there. We had already put the down payment on the apartment and everything before we moved in.
Once you got there, did you end up finding a job?
I'd say within not even the first week, roughly, I found a job.
Found a job doing what?
Construction, drywall, metal framing.
Had you worked in construction beforehand?
I had never worked with drywall, metal framing before in my life.
So did you get hired as what position, I guess, were you hired for?
I guess the best way to put it would be laborer, entry level.
Were you working full-time at that point?
Yes, sir.
Was your wife working full-time at that point?
Yes, sir.
And again, you said she was a server?
Yes.
What was the name of the company that you worked construction for?
Fryer Drywall.
And did you work there basically the entire time you were in New York?
Predominantly, yes, sir. There was off seasons. The snow would get so bad that the trucks couldn't deliver equipment to the job sites or things like that, and ended up working for a huge family car dealership.
Did you say?
Salesman.
As a salesman, okay. And with the construction company, did you remain a laborer?
No. Moved up the ranks pretty fast.
Into, I guess, what type of position?
Foreman.
And what does a foreman do?
Pretty much oversees the jobs when the boss can't be there, or oversees the crew to make sure the work's getting done in an adequate time frame.
Now, I think you said that you guys got married in New York. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that pretty soon upon getting there?
We were there about a year.
Traditional type wedding?
Yes, sir.
And did you guys end up having kids together?
Yes, we did.
Was that long after you were married?
The first one came about a little under a year.
And was that a boy or girl?
Boy,
Well, what's his name?
Tyler Steven.
Okay. And did you have more kids together?
We had another boy,
And what's his name?
Colin Dominic.
And how old are they now?
Tyler just turned 16, and Colin just turned 13.
Are you close with them?
Yes, very.
How often do you talk to them?
Daily basis, FaceTime, things like that nature. Text message. I at least communicate with them, see how they're doing, see what's going on with them.
Now, I guess we talked about Beth's parents a little bit. What did they do for a living?
Her mom pretty much didn't. She worked part-time as a retail sales, but for the most part, she stayed home. Her dad owned a construction company.
Okay. And what did her dad own a construction company?
Yes, sir.
Separate from the one you were working for?
Yes, sir.
So as you guys were having kids, did you both remain working?
Yes. Her mother ended offered her services to watch her grandson.
Okay, so her mom kind of helps raise the kids.
Yes, sir.
That allowed you guys to keep working?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I know you said you didn't know anybody when you moved to New York, but I assume you started to meet people?
Yes, sir.
Was one of those people Ed Jackson?
Yes, it was.
How'd you meet Ed?
Through one of my coworkers at the drywall company. We happened to be talking about fishing, and he was talking about how he had a buddy he'd go fishing with, and he asked me if I wanted to tag along with him. And we all ended up going out on a Saturday morning, going fishing.
Did you guys, and I guess how long had you been living in New York before you met Ed?
Roughly about a year.
You said you met through a coworker?
Yes, sir.
Did you and you went fishing together?
Yes, sir.
Was that on this prestigious lake?
No, that wasn't until later when they found out I had access.
Okay, tell me more about that.
We had went fishing this one lake. You could walk up in and walk across the rocks and waterfalls. That's where we originally went fishing. And I, talking to people in general about fishing, had scouted areas that you could get into. And I ended up taking them not to Orange Lake, but to another secluded lake that was huge for bass fishing.
And you said you had known about that lake?
Yes.
And they didn't?
No, sir.
Did a lot of people know about that?
No, it's an old apple orchard. You had to, one, know where the trail was, and two, you had to have a four-wheel drive vehicle that you didn't mind getting scratches on to get to.
And did you have that kind of
Yes,
vehicle?
sir. I had a Jeep.
Okay. Now, you said you met Ed through your coworkers. Was it you and your coworkers and Ed that kind of always went fishing together?
It was, originally it was me, my coworker, and Ed. And then, for the most part, it was normally me and Ed almost every weekend. And his son would tag along every once in a while.
So you guys spent a lot of time together.
Yes, sir.
Was Ed married at that point?
No. No, sir.
Was we heard from Linda Jackson earlier? Was Linda there with him?
No, sir.
Okay. So as you and your wife were raising your family, did there end up being some bumps in the road?
Yes, sir. We married very young, or got together very young, so we were kind of working our way through the marriage and figuring out, which way to go, because we really didn't have anything else to compare it to.
Were her parents, I guess, involved in the relationship?
Somewhat, yes, sir.
After you had children, he was still working. I'm sorry, you were still working construction. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did Beth find a different line of work?
Yeah, we had spoke about long-term goals. What we plan on getting out of life, where we want to end up at the end of our life together, or hopefully still together. And we spoke about, I had actually seen that FedEx was hiring seasonal, and this was around September, October. And if they liked your performance, they would hire you on permanently. And it's a really good job to have, career.
So did she apply for that?
Yes,
job?
and she got hired on. She worked the season through Christmas, and they offered her a full-time position.
Eventually, did you and your family leave New York?
Yes, sir.
And where did you leave New York for?
There had been some issues with my father and his medical issues, and he was getting really bad off, and I'm only child. So I talked to her about it, and she understood the whole thing, and with her job, she could transfer. And she put in to make sure she could get a transfer back to Hampton, Newport News area, and they said they would grant her a transfer. So we ended up moving back so I could help take care of my father.
Was your father still married to your mother at that point?
No, sir.
Were they divorced?
Yes, sir.
When did that happen?
When I was like 10, roughly.
So while you were living in New York that you got wind that your father's health was?
Yes, sir. And I didn't want to be far away in case something happened. I couldn't get to him.
Had he been sick before then?
Small problems, nothing huge. But then he was born with an enlarged heart, and pretty much his heart was shutting down.
And so your mother wasn't really in the picture helping him at that point?
No, sir.
Where was he living?
He had his own little apartment.
So you discussed the situation with Beth and decided to move back to Virginia?
Yes, sir. She completely understood.
And did you say she was able to transfer her job?
Yes, sir.
The kid came with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you move in with your dad?
No, sir. We moved reasonably close. I could get to him within a matter of probably 3 minutes if I needed to.
So was that an apartment or a house that you
Moved into a house.
Did you have that prearranged prior to moving back to Virginia?
Yes, sir. We already had this already established, and we had already paid the move-in fee and everything before we even got there. We moved right into the house. As soon as we came to Virginia, pulled right in the driveway and loaded the truck.
And obviously, Beth had that FedEx job. Did you have a job lined up?
Yes, sir.
What job was that?
It was a window installation and caulking company. It installs windows and industrial windows, things like that.
And how did you have that lined up prior to moving there?
It was a deacon from my dad's church he went to, and he had known me for a long time, and my dad had made it aware that I was going to be moving back, and he wanted to know if I had found an employment yet.
Was that a full-time job?
Yes, sir.
And was Beth's FedEx job still full-time?
Oh, yes, sir.
Were your kids in school?
Yes, sir.
And you said the primary, or one of the reasons you went there was to help care for your father.
Yes, sir.
Is that what you did?
Yes, sir.
I guess, what did you have to do, or what?
There's a lot of things he couldn't do, like lifting or moving things. He was on oxygen 24 hours a day. So I pretty much helped him with the cleaning of his house. Anything he needed he couldn't do, or I worried about that he couldn't do, I'd help him with.
And did he recover from his sickness?
Somewhat. He was always on a lot of medications. He always had to go to doctors a lot. He stayed on oxygen 24 hours a day until the day he died.
And again, once you moved back to Virginia, were you very involved, I guess, with your mom at that point?
Not really.
Focused on your dad?
He's always been my best friend.
And also your own family?
Yes, sir.
And you said he ended up passing away.
Yes, sir.
When was that?
September 6th, I believe it was 2014.
Were you still married at that time?
Yes, sir.
And then after that time, I guess, would you say your relationship with Beth, I guess, continued to deteriorate?
Yes, sir.
And eventually divorce paperwork was filed?
Roughly about a year later.
How'd your kids handle that?
It hurt him. But it got to the point where we had made a promise that if we were arguing and we were doing it in front of the kids, we didn't want them to grow up seeing that.
Eventually then, did they kind of understand the situation?
We talked to them about it. They were getting up, and we've always been very straightforward with our kids, very open and honest with them. We try not to sugarcoat things if we don't have to. We can be honest with them. We keep it that way.
And you guys were living in that house?
Yes, sir.
Did one of you move out of that house?
She ended up moving in with her parents and taking the kids.
So her parents, did she go back to New York?
No, they probably, I want to say about 3 years, 2-3 years after we moved back to Virginia, they ended up moving down here. They missed the grandkids. Well, that's the excuse they used.
So they moved, and were you guys again in the kind of the Hampton, Newport News area?
Yes, sir.
And that's because that's where your dad was?
Yes, sir.
So you remained in the house that you had with Beth and the kids?
For a while.
Were you still working at that point?
Yes, sir.
And was that through that window company you talked about earlier?
No. I worked for the window company for a little while, and I ended up getting back into working in restaurants.
Was that like TGI Fridays again, or?
I worked for Olive Garden for a while, and then I ended up becoming a sous chef for a 4-star restaurant.
What was the name of that restaurant?
It's Thomas Schlesinger's. It's a prestigious steakhouse. They have one in Virginia and one in New York.
You said you were a sous chef?
Yes, sir.
So what's a sous chef?
Pretty much I was the person underneath the head chef. I made sure everything he said got taken care of.
And again, you like that kind of work?
I love it.
While you were in Virginia, did you maintain contact with Ed Jackson?
Yes, sir. I talked to him probably minimum of every 2 weeks, probably.
In the beginning?
Pretty much the whole time.
Okay. And was he in New York?
About a year after I moved back to Virginia, he moved to Green Bay, where his mother's from here.
And you knew that because you had been communicating with him?
Yes, sir.
And how were you communicating with him?
Phone, text message.
So he, I guess, was living in Green Bay for a period of time before I guess you and your wife split up.
Yes, sir.
And you'd been communicating with him about, I guess, how his life is going?
Yes, sir. He always told me I'd like it here. Kept trying to sell me to come visit. But the only vacation we got, we always went on like cruises or something.
Did he ever visit you in Virginia?
No, sir.
And I guess, when did you first know of Linda Jackson?
I knew he was dating her, but didn't physically ever speak to her or know her directly until about a week before I moved here.
So I know you said that Ed was kind of filling you in on how his life was going up here. Did you keep him informed of what was going on with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you kind of fall on, I guess, some difficult times after the split?
Yes, sir. And Ed was always, after my dad passed away, he was like the only other person I could really talk to. He's older, so it was like a father figure. That's why we got along. He reminded me a lot of my dad.
So eventually you decided you were going to get a fresh start?
Yes, sir.
And I guess, what made you want to get out of, I guess, that area?
Growing up there my whole life, there honestly wasn't too many places I could go that didn't remind me of my dad. That and just my marriage, just everything seemed to overwhelm me there for a little while.
What did you know about Wisconsin before you came here?
Packers. Like to drink beer. And cheese. That's honestly about all I knew.
So all the stereotypes?
I'd say yes.
Okay. Did you know anyone besides Ed living here?
No, sir.
And eventually you and Ed, I guess, worked out arrangements for you to come to the Green Bay area?
Yes, sir.
What arrangements did you guys make?
Pretty much come here and get away and find my bearings and decide what I wanted to do.
How'd you get here?
Train. 27-hour train ride.
What route did that train travel?
I got on the train at like 6 o'clock Sunday morning in Newport News, Virginia. Went through D.C., had a layover there. Then we ended up ending in Chicago.
Who paid for that train ticket?
I believe Ed did, but it was one of Ed or Linda.
And so the train stopped in Chicago?
Yes, sir.
Was Ed there waiting for you?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
So So you guys had arranged basically for the train to take you to Chicago, and then Ed was going to pick you up in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
And he did pick you up in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
And as far as dates and stuff go, to your best of your knowledge, when was it that you actually came, or you got to Chicago?
I got on the bus. I mean, on the train. Sorry. It was February. I'd say it was February 28th. If I'm not mistaken. I know I arrived here March 1st.
So is March 1st what you think is the day that you got off the train in Chicago?
Yes, sir. It was. I want to say like 9 o'clock, 9:30 a.m.
Was Linda there?
No, sir.
Just Ed?
Yes, sir.
He drove you from, did he drive you directly from Chicago back to Green Bay?
No, we stopped in Racine. He had, they're called waypoints. It's pretty much for a fish finder. It pinpoints places where you've had good catches the day before, and he had to drop them off to his buddy that owned a fishing charter.
And you were with him when he did that?
Yes, sir.
So you met his buddy?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember what his name was?
Mike, I don't remember his last name.
And you say he owned his own, I guess, charter company?
It was A1 Charters. It's a fishing charter.
Did you stay at Mike's at that point?
No, we were only there for roughly about an hour.
You guys introduced yourselves to each other?
Yes, sir.
Did you, obviously you and Ed had fished a lot together prior to this. Did you guys discuss potential for any sort of upcoming fishing trips?
We had spoke about 2 months later, roughly, we were going to go on a fishing with Mike's boat out in, I believe it's Lake Michigan.
But you didn't go fishing at that point?
No, sir.
So after you stopped at Mike's, did you continue your drive to Green Bay?
Yes, sir. Stopped at McDonald's and then came to Green Bay.
And who was driving?
Ed was.
And what kind of vehicle was he driving?
Chevy 3500 HD.
So a truck?
Yes, sir.
I know you said you went to McDonald's, but then from there, did Ed bring you directly to his home?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall the address of that home?
912 South Greenwood. I believe it's Avenue.
And that's Ed's house?
Yes, sir.
And you knew at that point that he was living there with Linda?
They made me aware of it. She wasn't there when I got there.
But she knew you were going to be coming?
Yes, sir.
You guys had made arrangements for you to stay with them?
Yes, sir.
And I think you said when you arrived at that residence, Linda wasn't actually there.
No, she was still at work.
You recall around what time you made it to Green Bay?
It was afternoon, roughly 1 o'clock, maybe 1:30, somewhere around there.
So you get to Ed's place, and I guess what do you guys do once you get there?
Came inside, introduced me to the dogs, introduced me to his father. I didn't even know his father lived there. I just called him Mr. Jackson. I don't remember what his first name was. And he showed me where my room would be. Carried my stuff to my room.
What were the dogs' names?
Zeke and Athena. Zeus and Athena, I'm sorry, was a German Shepherd. He actually passed away about a month after me being there. He had a heart attack. And they had a huge Doberman named Athena.
So, 2 dogs, Ed, Linda, and Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Did you say you had your own bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Could you just, I guess, briefly describe how this house is set up, how it's laid out?
From the street you walk in, and it's, I guess, a mud room, what you'd call it. And then you go into the main door. When you go into the main door, you can go left. And it's the living room, dining room, kitchen, bathroom. And there's a bedroom right there. in like the dining room area, and that's where his father stayed because he
Okay.
couldn't climb the stairs. And then on the other side, you go, as soon as you come through the door, you go to the right, and it's stairs that go right up. My bedroom was the first door on the left, and then there was an office, and then it was Ed and Linda's bedroom.
So Mr. Jackson, Ed's father, he had his own bedroom.
Yes, sir.
You had your own bedroom.
Yes, sir.
And then Ed and Linda shared a bedroom.
Yes, sir.
And then your bedroom and Ed and Linda's, those two bedrooms were on the second floor.
Yes, sir. And there was an office in between.
Did you bring a lot of stuff with you when you came here?
Not really. Pretty much they have on certain things you can carry on a train. Bought some clothes, 2 pair of work shoes, and a pair of Jordans.
When you say a pair of Jordans, what are those?
Tennis shoes.
So they had a bed, I guess, set up for you?
They told me they'd have all that. I'll just bring my clothes and bring myself.
And I think you said you first arrived at that residence and got the tour and showed your room sometime in the afternoon?
Yes, sir.
What happened after you were, I guess, shown the residence? What did you guys do?
They told me he had some things he had to take care of, and told me I pretty much went and passed out in my room for a while because it wasn't that easy to get any sleep on the train with a lot of people moving around and bumping into you. It didn't fit too well in the seats either, so that didn't help.
Did you bring your kids with you?
No, sir.
Did you talk to them about your plans to move to Wisconsin?
Yes, sir. I sat them down and pretty much explained to them the situation I was going through and everything, and they let me know that they were 100% behind me on whatever I needed to do.
So are they still in Virginia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think I asked you this earlier, but do you remain in contact with them?
As much as I can. Yes, sir.
Just had phone calls or?
Phone calls, text. We even used to go as far as playing Xbox Live. That's one way I learned that at a young age to communicate with them, and sometimes you get a lot more out of them by playing video games with them because they'll talk to you openly. And since I couldn't physically be there to play with them anymore, I would play online with them. That way I could still talk to them.
When you came to Green Bay, did you have a job lined up?
No, sir. I was just going to be working with Ed to help him out.
What does that do again?
He's a mechanic.
So did you guys discuss that prior to your arrival?
He basically just said that I could. It's pretty much a way of earning my keep. It's just help him around the shop. That way, he didn't have to hire anybody, and anything he needed done, I would do for him. Go get parts, help change brakes, rotate, whatever needed to be done.
So let's go back then. You got here, you passed out from the trip and woke up. Did you guys do anything that night?
We ended up going out to a restaurant, bar/restaurant, I guess. It was like their last night being open, actually, for wings. It was on Monday night. I know it was by the water. That's all I know.
Did you meet Linda at that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you guys have any sort of prearranged rental agreement prior to you getting here?
No, sir.
I assume that topic came up at some point?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of arrangements did you guys agree to?
It was pretty much once I started working and had money coming in where I could pay, that I would pay $100 a week.
So you said you had planned on just kind of helping out Ed on odd jobs, whatever he needed?
Right.
Did you do that when you got here?
Yes, sir. He had his business was mechanic, and he would also go. One big thing about his business was he would come to you if your car broke down somewhere and fix it on the side of the road or fix it at your house and everything. So I would go help him do little odd things he needed done.
Did you, in addition to helping him with his mechanical work, did you do other things around the house?
Cook, clean, help cook. Like him and Linda would go out sometimes, so I would cook and clean or help cook for his dad because his dad had to eat by like 5 o'clock. And I'm used to dealing with older people and helping them, so it didn't really bother me. Plus, doing landscaping or whatever, shoveling snow or whatever needed to be done.
So it's not like you did everything, but you just kind of helped out here and there.
Whatever he asked me to.
Okay. Did you eventually get a job a different job, or your own job, I should say?
Yes, sir. When I first moved here, even though I was helping him, I still was searching for employment. That way I could, earn my own keep also. It's nice to have money in your pocket.
And where did you end up working?
Blackstone on the east side.
Had you, did you go to Blackstone, or how did you come across that opportunity?
Actually, I went on Craigslist for the classified hiring in Green Bay, and it said that they were hiring, and I had mentioned it to Ed. We had talked about it, and one night we were working late, and like I said before, his dad has to eat early, so they ate at like 5 o'clock, and we didn't get done until like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So he suggested we go grab a burger at Blackstone on the west side.
So Blackstone on the west side, you guys?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually go there?
Yes, sir.
Did you get the burger?
Yes, sir. And while I was there, he said, "Well, why don't you just go ahead and fill application since you're already here?" And he knew the waitress and asked if they were still hiring, and she said, "Yeah, they were always hiring." And I ended up sat there and filled out the application while I was eating.
And how long had you been here at that point?
I got here. This was Wednesday night. I got here Monday.
Okay. You filled out the application. Did you have an interview at that time, or was it just?
Excuse me. No, it was. Like I said, by the time we got done eating and everything, it was close to 9 o'clock, so there was nobody really there for me to speak with. She just said that she would give it to the manager, or excuse me, the owner, because he comes in the morning.
So you guys ate your meal
and went home.
When did you next hear anything about that job opportunity?
Roughly about 1 or 2 o'clock Thursday, the following day.
And what happened?
They wanted to set up an interview with me to come in and speak to them.
They again being who?
The owner. The west side is owned by John Hines. The east side was opened for the son Daniel Hines, for him to essentially move back and help with his dad to open another business so he could have a portion of the business himself.
So you ate dinner at, was it the west side location?
Yes, sir.
And then where did you actually end up working?
I interviewed at the east side and was hired at the east side.
So after you filled out your application, they called you in for an interview?
Right. I talked to him Thursday, like I said, around 1 or 2 o'clock, and wanted me to come in. It was right before lunch the following day on Friday.
And what position did you apply for?
I originally applied just for cook.
Is that what you got hired as?
No, I actually got hired as cook / night manager.
Why was that?
The son was working a lot of hours, and they needed someone they could depend on, that knew the business and knew how to run the business while they weren't there.
So you said you were hired partially as a cook?
Yes, sir.
So something you're familiar with?
Oh, definitely.
And then did you say you were
a night manager? Pretty much oversaw coming and going, the wait staff, placing orders, anything to be ordered, any problems with the customers or anything like that.
What kind of hours were you promised when you were hired?
We had worked out where it would be salary, and I would work 50, but no more than 55 hours a week.
And presumably you told Ed and Linda about this arrangement?
Ed was actually there when I got hired. He actually sat right next to me when the interview went on.
Okay. So then you got hired. Were you working there full time then?
Yes, sir.
Once you got hired?
Yes, sir.
Were you working the hours that were promised to you?
Originally, yes.
What happened?
People wouldn't show up. People would call out. People would quit. It's a very busy business there. They do a really good business there. And it got to the point where I was averaging anywhere from 75 to 80 hours a week.
And again, during this time frame, you were living with Ed and Linda?
Yes, sir.
When you first got here, how were you getting to and from work?
I had a truck.
What kind of truck?
I want to say it was 97, 98, roughly. It was a gold Chevy 1500.
And whose vehicle was that?
Ed's.
But you had permission to use that?
Yes, sir. At
some point, did you start using a different vehicle?
They The frame, we were actually doing the brakes on the truck because the brakes were going bad, and we noticed that the frame had a lot of rust damage on it, and it was cracking.
So did you start using a different vehicle?
It was the a 99 Chevy Blazer.
And is that the vehicle that we actually saw photographs of over the
Yes,
course
sir.
of this trial? The vehicle that was subsequently destroyed by fire?
Yes, sir.
So you were using that to go back and forth to Blackstone?
Yes, sir.
When you got here, what was your, I guess, cell phone situation or mobile phone?
I had had the same cell phone number since like June of 2001. After we moved to New York, we had got it used to be Nextel, which merged with Sprint.
And so you had that plan still when you came here?
Right, and as of when I moved here, it consisted of my phone, my wife's phone, and our children's phone. Because Sprint has the family locator, so if something ever happened to our kids, we knew where they were by GPS.
What happened with that phone after you got here?
After I'd moved here, my wife wasn't satisfied with Sprint anymore. She wanted to end up getting a new phone, and she ended up transferring her number to another company, which left me with pretty much the contract that was left, and that was getting ready to run out.
That was what?
It was getting ready to expire, the contract that I had with Sprint, and Sprint honestly didn't work too well here.
So that contract ended up expiring?
Yes, sir.
And the phone no longer worked?
Yes, sir.
Presumably, if you're living with Ed and Linda, you hang out with them every once in a while?
Yes, sir.
What kind of things did you do together?
Mainly we went out to dinner. We went out to for drinks a couple times. Went out to dinner. They took me to their family up in Rylander, I think's the name of it, for Easter. Because I remember they waited for me to get off work because I didn't get off at Blackstone until like 8 in the morning, Easter morning.
And were you communicating with them about your work schedule as you were living there?
I didn't see them too often. Problem was I would go to work at like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I'd leave to go to work, and they were just going to bed, or Linda was going to bed because she had to be up early. And a lot of times I wouldn't get back until like 10 o'clock the next morning from work.
While you were working at Blackstone, did you meet a woman by the name of Jordan Schuyler?
After a couple weeks of being there, I did.
Did she work there?
Yes, I would say so. She would come in a lot of times, but on the busier days, her mom was like one of the head night waitress, I guess is the best way to put it. And she would help her out, run food, take orders, clean, anything needed to be done. Excuse me.
And you two became friends, you and Jordan?
Yes, sir.
And eventually you started dating each other?
Down the road, yes, sir.
After you had left Blackstone?
Yes, sir.
So, as I just indicated, you did end up leaving Blackstone.
Yes.
How did that go?
I had spoke to Ed and Linda. They had even expressed that they didn't think it was right. What had really broke it down was the amount of hours I was working compared to my pay. It just didn't add up. I was working in the kitchen now with the hours I was working, I was roughly making like $9, $10 an hour. I made more than that in high school doing the same job, and I had a lot more responsibilities. And it just, all I was doing was working and sleeping. I'd come home, pass out, wake back up, take a shower, have like an hour, and have to go back to work.
Was there a period of time in between, or I guess, did you have a job lined up when you left Blackstone?
No. I called Ed, spoke with him about it, and let him know, said, situation we had talked about. And he said, just quit. Just, we'll work it out. Just, it's not worth it. The headaches and everything you're going through, running yourself ragged for someone else. You're not even making any decent money doing it.
Was there a period of time before you were able to get another job?
Roughly just under 2 weeks.
What was that other job that you found?
NEW Landscaping.
Where was... I'll take that back. So NEW Landscaping, presumably you were doing landscaping work.
Yes, sir. Lawn maintenance, shrubs, pruning, you name it. Anything had to do with flowers, grass, mulching.
Was that a full-time job?
Yes, sir.
And what vehicle were you using to get to that job?
Blazer.
Did you always wear, I guess, did you ever wear safety glasses when you were at work?
Sometimes when there was more chances of getting hit in the eye with something, but not all the time. Excuse me.
Would you always wear long pants and long shirts?
No, sir.
What about gloves? Did you always wear gloves?
If we were working with something that was going to stab you or prick you or irritate your hands or something like that, yes, but not always.
Over the course of your work landscaping there, did you ever get injured?
Not severely or anything, but bumps, bruises, scrapes, scratches, small things.
Nothing that you would ever file a workers' compensation?
Oh, no, sir.
You had mentioned that you and Ed and Linda would occasionally, I guess, go out to eat.
Yes, sir.
Where would you guys go?
I believe it's called Who Hot or something like that. It's like a bar. I forgot. They cook your food on a stone or something. A couple different places. We went to Pizza Ranch. A couple mom and pop places. I remember we went to one place they really liked to go was it's called Petticoat Junction. We used to go on Friday nights.
That was almost. You said you used to go on Friday nights?
Mm-hmm. They used to always have a fish fry on Fridays, and they had deep fried lobster and shrimp and things like that.
Did you ever go to Richard Cranium's?
Yes, sir.
Where was Richard Cranium's in relation to Ed and Linda's house?
Roughly 3 blocks, 2.5, 3 blocks from their house.
So that was you could walk there?
In about 4 minutes.
And as you, I guess, got to Green Bay, were working at Blackstone and stuff, would you go to Richard Cranium's by yourself sometimes?
Yes, sir. Occasionally.
Did you meet people at Richard Cranium's?
Yes, sir.
You remember any of their names?
Jeff Hennon and Matt Weisenberg.
Did you like Richard Cranium's?
The first time I went in there, I really didn't know anybody. It was kind of where I'm from. You kind of shady. Some places you're kind of leery of where you want to go into because you don't know what you're walking into. But I went in there and everyone was really nice to me. And the second time I actually went back, they remembered my name and they remembered what I drank. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Well, I've been in here once and they remember me.
And they remembered your name being?
Big Country.
And what's your drink that they remembered?
Jack and Coke.
Eventually, you moved out of Ed and Linda's house, right?
Yes, sir.
And where did you move to?
Stayed at Jeff's house for a little while.
Jeff being the guy that you just mentioned you met at Richard Cranium's?
Yes, sir.
How did that arrangement come to be?
I made him aware of my situation. He said that if need be, was welcome to stay on his couch for a while. He had a basement, but the basement was turned into literally like a living room, a bedroom. It was almost like a separate apartment, except there wasn't a locked door in between or anything like that.
When you moved in with Jeff, were you still working at NEW?
No, sir.
Had you, I guess, lost that job?
Yes, sir.
Was that because you lost your transportation to that job?
Yes, sir, because it was in, I want to say Little Schwamico. I want to say it's off 41.
When you lived with Jeff, you said you weren't at NEW. Did you find a different job?
Yes, sir.
What job was that?
Bay Area Finishers.
kind of work is that?
Drywall, metal studs. It was tied into the. I've been a current member for a while now of the Carpenters Union, and was tied in through there.
Was that a full-time job?
Yes, sir.
And did Jeff work there too?
Yes, sir. He had mentioned it to me before they might be looking for someone, and I spoke to him about it, and he talked to his boss, and his boss told him to go ahead and bring me in once he heard that I had years of experience.
Was that also a full-time job?
Yes, sir.
Did you guys go to work together?
For the first job we did. The first job was they did a sound edition for the band and music at UWGB.
So not all work assignments, though? You didn't go together every time?
No.
Then eventually, did you move out of Jeff's residence?
Yes, sir.
And where did you move to?
Matt Wasenberg's.
Again, is he the individual, one of the individuals you had gotten to know through Richard Craniums?
Yes, sir.
How did that arrangement come to be?
Jeff had a daughter that was 14, and her mom were not having the best of times, I guess, and she had asked if she could move with her father. And Jeff came to me and said, I know you need somewhere to stay, and I know you had talked to Matt about it. Is that what you plan on doing? And he explained to me their situation, that she would be staying downstairs, and because it was only a one-bedroom upstairs, and then they had like the other set up downstairs. It was a small house, and I told him I completely understood, and that's when I called Matt and talked to Matt about moving in there.
Matt was okay with it?
Yes, sir.
You kind of basically said you lived in the basement of Jeff's. What was your arrangement at Matt's?
I was staying on his couch. He had said eventually that he was going to be more than likely moving out and moving in with his girlfriend, and asked me if I was interested, because it was a small little place, but it was decent for one, maybe two people. It was a couple, and he asked me eventually if I liked staying there, did I want to maybe take over the lease, because he had expressed moving in with his girlfriend at the time.
But that never happened, though.
No, sir.
And do you agree that over the course of this trial we heard from Matt Wasenberg?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember him talking about some shoes that were found behind the door?
Yes, sir.
I believe there were some blue and white shocks, and then
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of pairs of Jordans,
Yes, sir.
and then a few other items of footwear.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with his description of the ownership of those shoes?
The blue and white socks were his. The gray and black Jordans were mine, and the black with the tannish gold bottom ones were mine.
And you were living at Matt's when I guess, essentially you were on your way to work from Matt's when you were arrested?
Yes, sir.
And we've heard officers talk about that arrest?
Yes, sir.
And obviously, as you are well aware at this point, that arrest led to you being charged with the murder of Nicole VanderHeyden.
Yes, sir.
So, you're aware that all of the circumstances surrounding her death occurred between May 20th and May 21st of 2016.
Yes, sir.
So, let's go back to that time frame. So, May 20th of 2016, who were you living with at that point?
Ed and Linda Jackson.
Where were you working at that point?
NEW Landscaping.
And again, what vehicle were you using at that point?
Chevy Blazer.
I guess let's start with the morning of May 20th. That was a Friday. Do you remember that morning?
Yes, sir.
I guess, what do you remember about that morning?
I get up roughly at 5:15 in the morning. Go downstairs, take a shower, get ready for work, make coffee, pretty much drink my coffee, and take off for work. Get my water. I always take waters and put them in the freezer, because doing landscaping, you're going to drink a lot of water.
So you did work that Friday?
Yes, sir.
How'd you get to work?
I drove the Blazer to, like I said, I believe it was Little Swamico on the interstate.
That was that for that sound project? Or was that
No, this was for this. I was still looking for the landscaping at the time.
Do you remember what time you got back from work on that day?
It was roughly about 5:30. Just around there. I remember because when I got back, Ed and Linda were telling me to hurry and jump in the shower. They would wait for me because that's when we would go to the Petticoat Junction restaurant.
The Friday night fish fry?
Yes, sir.
Did you have other plans for that weekend?
We were supposed to be going fishing the following day.
Where were you supposed to be going fishing?
Racine.
And who were you supposed to be going fishing with?
That gentleman I spoke about earlier, Mike, from the A1 Fishing Tours.
So was this essentially the fishing trip that you guys discussed when you first got here?
Yes, sir.
Did you go out to eat with Ed and Linda that night?
Yes, sir.
And where did you say you went?
Petticoat Junction.
How was that?
Pretty good.
Who was there?
Ed, Linda, Ed's father, a couple of Ed's friends, and like one of his fishing buddies, and some other guy that they knew, and one had a wife and the other guy's girlfriend.
What'd you guys do after dinner?
We ended up going to the cell phone company at the mall.
Do you remember what cell phone company?
Cellcom.
And when you say the mall,
The one in Green Bay? I don't know the name of it.
and you said we went to the mall. Who went to the mall?
Ed, Linda, and myself.
How'd you guys get there?
We all rode in Linda's Jeep.
And what was the purpose of you guys going to the mall after dinner?
I expressed to him earlier about my cell phone that it was going to be getting turned off, and I need to find something. And Linda was talking to me about it at dinner, and I told her I was probably going to get a prepaid phone, and she said that I didn't have to go that route, that she could just add me to her line because she already had one with Ed and herself, and she could add my phone just to her line.
And so that's what she did?
Yes, sir.
And that was on May 21st?
May 20th.
I apologize.
Yes, sir, May 20th at roughly about 8:30 at night.
After the mall, what did you guys do?
We ended up going to I want to say the name's Pete, but I don't know if that's right. The guy that went out to dinner with us, Ed's friend, fishing buddy, we ended up going by his house because Ed and him were going locally fishing first thing in the morning, Saturday morning, before we went to Racine.
Okay, so you went to, you think his name is Pete's house?
I believe, I'm not sure though.
And that's a separate guy from the fisherman from Racine.
Right, that was Mike.
And I forgot to ask, after the mall or at the mall, did you have a cell phone activated?
Yes. I ended up getting a black Samsung Galaxy S5. It was one of those deals where if you get a phone, get a line, they give you the phone for free.
And I guess, were you able to, did you have to re-enter all your contacts and things of that nature?
No, I actually had, my Sprint phone was a Samsung Galaxy 5, S5, the gold edition, and I just got the same phone in the black edition. So there was a way they could link them and just transfer everything right over because it's the exact same phone. They're exactly compatible, set up and everything.
So as soon as that phone was activated, it automatically had,
Synced everything right to it.
so you had Matt Wasenberg's number.
Got all my contacts, all my emails, everything was tied right into the new phone.
Jeff was in there.
Yes, sir.
Jordan was in there.
Yes, sir.
At that point in time, what was your relationship like with Jordan?
We had been hanging out, going and doing things. We really hadn't started to be romantically involved yet. It was somewhat getting there, but it wasn't definitely like, we're going to be together. I wasn't with her every day. We hung out a lot, but it wasn't every single day.
Eventually, you guys grew even closer?
Yes, that would be, it was more over Memorial Day weekend, beginning of June, right around that time, is when we started hanging out a lot more together.
So not too long after that point?
No, about a week, 10 days roughly.
After, where'd you guys go after Pete's or whoever Ed's buddies was?
We ended up going back home to Ed's house.
What'd you do when you got home?
I went in my room, changed my shirt, and then I ended up telling them that I was going to go out for a little while.
What time around do you think you went out, and I guess where did you go out to?
I would roughly a little bit after 11, around 11, a little bit, maybe 11:15, roughly around that time. I went to Richard Cranium's right down the street.
How'd you get there?
I drove.
Where'd you park?
When you Ed and Linda's street's right here, you go up Fifth Avenue towards Broadway, right. Richard Cranium's is right on the corner of Broadway and Fifth, and the parking lot is on the back side of the building, so you get to the parking lot right before you get to Broadway. So I just pulled in right there.
Did you go inside right away?
Yes, sir.
What do you remember doing, I guess, when you first got to Richard Cranium's on that night?
Just walked in, said hi to like a lot of the usuals that knew me, asked me how I was doing, everything like that. When I went to the bar, I remember the bartender's name was Brandy at the time. I don't know if she still works there or not, but she had a drink waiting for me, and I plugged up my new phone because it wasn't charged all the way yet. Richard Cranium's has phone chargers, like every single stool has its own phone charger.
Was it crowded that night?
It's fairly packed.
And I guess what's the? I've never been to Richard Cranium's. What's the environment there? Is it what kind of bar is it?
I guess you could say it's somewhat sports orientated. There's a bunch of TVs, projection screen. It's like a happy-go-lucky place. I've never seen any violence there or anything like that. I felt safe enough to leave my cell phone on the counter and go walk outside and have a cigarette and not have to worry about my phone being taken, if that helps.
Is that what was going on that night? Was there sports?
Pretty much. There were sports games on. Everybody talking about their week, what happened during the week, and
just kind of
hanging out,
decompressing from the work week.
Yes, sir.
And you said the bartender, I think you said her name was Brandy, had your drink ready when you got there?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say your drink was again?
Jack and Coke.
So you were drinking on this night?
Yes, sir.
Did you go alone to Richard?
Yes, sir.
At some point when you were there, did you end up meeting someone who you now know as Nicole VanderHeyden?
Yes, sir.
Tell us more about that.
I was in the bar area, went out before, had a cigarette, came back, was standing there, and I don't know if I was watching TV or what it was, or talking amongst friends around me, but I noticed there was a fairly attractive blonde woman standing next to me.
What was she doing?
I believe she was getting a drink. I'm not sure. I just, there's a couple people over here, and she was over here, and I started talking to her, just making conversation.
Okay, so you noticed her and started talking to her?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember? Do you remember if you approached her, if she approached you? I guess kind of describe for us as best as you can.
I just leaned to the side and saw that she was standing, and she didn't seem to be with anybody. She was by herself, and I just kind of struck up a conversation. She was right in the vicinity, right next to me.
Did you see her walk in with anybody?
No.
Did you see her walk in?
I don't remember her walking, her coming in or where she came in, because you can come in through the front or the back, and I just remember looking over, and she was standing close to my area at the bar.
And you don't remember seeing her before that?
No, sir.
You struck up a conversation?
Yes, sir.
What kind of stuff were you guys talking about?
First started, she said that it didn't sound like I was from here. I don't see myself as having an accent, but a lot of people do. And she just asked me where I was from, and started from there. Just talked about in general how I'd moved here and everything. Talked about my past, or just in general, told her things about myself. Trying to get to know each other.
At any point when you were talking with her, did anybody arrive that seemed to be with her?
No, we sat there and talked for a while.
Did you guys talk about relationships?
We both expressed that we had been through marriages. I told her I had kids. She told me she had kids from marriages. She was, I don't remember if she said separated or divorced. I told her that I was going through the current situation myself.
Did she give you any indication that she was actively in a relationship?
Not that I could tell, no sir.
And while you were interacting with Nicole, did you continue to drink?
Yes sir.
Did she continue to drink?
Yes sir.
How would you describe her demeanor? I mean, was she like falling down drunk or both?
No, we standing there talking, having a conversation. I could understand everything she was saying. She wasn't sloppy drunk or anything like that. I didn't notice her stumble or anything.
As best as you can remember, I mean, how were you acting towards her?
I was flirting.
And how was she acting towards you?
Somewhat the same, pretty much. Flirting back and forth with each other.
So I guess tell me more about that if you remember. I mean, what, if you remember, gave you the impression that you were flirting with her and she was flirting with you?
Well, I moved a little closer to her, just talking, laughing, joking, giggling, light touch here or there, just things that you can pretty much tell if someone's kind of into you, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Were you guys there for a while?
Till they kicked us out, pretty much.
So around bar close?
Yes, sir.
How does bar close work at Richard Cranium's?
They call last call, let you order some drinks, and pretty much tell you to get the hell out when it's time to go.
So
in those words.
On this particular night, is that what happened? They called last call?
Yes, sir.
You had another drink?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember if Nicole had another drink?
I don't remember if she was finishing the one she had or if she got another one. I don't recall. She could have, but like I said, I don't remember.
What happened after that?
We proceeded to leave through the back.
So you guys left together?
Yes, sir. I invited her back to my place.
She gave you the impression that she agreed to that?
Yes, sir. She walked to my vehicle. I opened the passenger's door. She got in the passenger's door. I shut the door, went around to the driver's side, and got in my Blazer.
Then what happened?
We went back to my house right down the street.
Did you guys get out of the car?
Yes, sir.
What'd you do?
We went in the house. We weren't planning. When we walked in, Ed's father was sitting there in the road, which kind of, I guess, slowed things down a little bit, I guess, in the way they were progressing to.
So what happened? You walked in and Ed's dad was awake?
Right, sitting right there at like the living room, dining room area in his robe.
So what'd you guys decide to do?
Excuse me. She needed to use the bathroom. She asked me if she could use the bathroom. I told her to go right ahead, and I showed her where the bathroom was. And then when she came out, we proceeded to go back outside, and then she said we could leave, go back towards her area.
So did you guys get back in the Blazer?
Yes.
Were you still driving at this point?
Yes, sir.
And where was she?
She was in the passenger seat.
Front passenger seat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your recollection is at that point, you said she had invited you back to her place?
Yes, sir.
Did you know where her place was?
No idea.
When you guys got back in the car, did she, I guess, give you an address to type into a GPS?
No, she just gave me directions. She told me to head back towards Broadway.
Is that what you did?
Yes, sir.
What'd you do when you got to Broadway?
Made a right.
And is that, why would you go right?
That's what she told me which way to go.
So she essentially was giving you directions as you were driving.
Yes, sir.
Turn left up here,
Right.
turn right up here,
Mm-hmm.
go straight.
Yes, sir.
And you were under the impression that you were going back to her place?
Yes, sir.
At this point, I guess, did she give you any indication of, well, did she tell you where her place was?
No. No, sir.
She give you a general neighborhood where it was?
No, sir. I wouldn't have known if she had told me where it was. I hadn't been here that long, and I didn't know where anywhere was, any place was around here.
Did you have any idea if it was like going to be an apartment or a house?
No clue.
Did you have any idea if she lived alone or with somebody?
No, sir.
You just knew that she did have kids.
But I knew that her kids were gone with their father for the weekend
You guys talked about that?
when we were at the bar.
So at some point, you find yourself in a neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Does she stop, I guess, giving you directions?
She told me to pull over on the right.
And now that we've been here and you've seen maps and things of that nature, do you believe that that was Berkeley Road?
Yes, sir.
So why did she have you pull over on the right? Do you know?
I don't know why she picked that exact spot to pull over. No, sir.
Did you have the impression you had arrived at her residence?
Yes, sir.
Did you go in her residence?
No, sir.
Why not?
She said there was a light on it. She thought the babysitter was still up.
So you never went inside the residence?
No, sir. I've never been in the residence.
She had you pull over on the side of the road?
The right side of the road, yes, sir.
What happened after that?
We sat there and talked for a few minutes.
Okay. What happened after that?
Started fooling around, messing around a little bit. Started kissing.
And at this point, you were still in the driver's seat?
Yes, sir.
She was still in the front passenger seat?
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to get into too many details, but you said you were fooling around?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean to you?
Kissing. I was kissing her neck a little bit, touching each other.
Did you guys stay in the front seat?
No, sir.
Where'd you go?
The back seat, the Blazer.
How did you get into the back seat?
I got out of the driver's side and walked around to the back passenger.
Do you remember how she got in the back seat?
I don't remember if she got out and hopped in the back or if she just climbed over into the back seat.
But you said you went around to which door, I guess?
The back passenger?
And is that the door that would have been closest, one of the doors that was closest to the curb?
Yes, sir.
Did you get into the car at that point?
For a few minutes.
So when you got in the car then, where was she?
She would have been scooted over more towards the center / rear driver's side.
What happened once you got in the car?
The things we were doing before kind of continued and I guess you could say escalated.
When you went to the back seat, when you got out of the car and went around, were your clothes on?
I did not have my shirt on, but I had a tank top undershirt and my shorts on.
Did she have her clothes on when you got into the back seat?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
What does pretty much mean?
Her bra had been moved up. I don't remember if it was completely unfastened, but I know it had been moved up, and her shirt was disheveled a little bit, but they were still on her.
Eventually, do you remember if the bra and shirt came off?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember if you took them off?
I believe so, but I'm not definitely certain. I do know eventually that they were removed and out of the way.
And that happened when you were both in the back seat?
Yes, sir.
What about her pants? Do you remember? I know you said when she got into the back, her shirt was kind of disheveled. Were her pants on at that point?
At the start of it, yes.
So they didn't remain on?
Not after a while, no, sir.
Do you remember the process of her pants being taken off?
We had first touching, me touching her in certain areas, then me going inside her pants, getting to that same area, and then they were eventually removed.
And you said you were wearing shorts?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever take those shorts off?
Not completely off.
What does that mean?
They were later on lowered down around my ankles, but I never completely removed them from me.
I think you said that originally you actually got into the back seat.
Yes, sir.
Did that remain the case?
In the mix of everything going on, it's kind of hard to maneuver with me in the back of the Blazer and her in the truck together. There's not a lot of room for me. Naturally, my head pretty much almost hits the roof, and then trying to move around and finagling, doing things, just didn't work. So I ended up opening the back passenger door. It was very quiet. Like I didn't worry too much about someone really anything out there, because there wasn't, like I said, I'd never even seen a car come past or anything.
So you said you opened up the which door?
The back passenger door. It was a 4-door Blazer.
And you got out of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Where was Nicole at that point?
3/4 of the way, I'd say, laying down across the back of the Blazer.
When you say 3/4 of the way laying down in the back seat of the Blazer, I guess, what do you mean by that?
I was engaging in something, and for me to get to what I had to get to in the area that I was at, she was pretty much laying down with her feet raised back, or her legs up.
So what you meant by the 3/4 or whatever, her entire body wasn't
Correct.
laid out on the back
Correct.
seat.
She was, her head would be more towards the center or the other side, and then her bottom and her legs were up, and I was.
So she was face up at that point?
Yes, sir.
Was she conscious?
Yes, sir.
Was she interacting with you?
Yes, sir.
Eventually, did you have intercourse?
I finished doing what I was doing, and then eventually, yes.
Do you remember whether or not you used a condom?
I do not recall 100%.
When you started to have intercourse, was she, I guess, positioned in the same way that you had already described to us?
For the most part, yes.
What does "for the most part" mean?
For me to be able to access what we were doing and function for it to function correctly, I had to kind of scoot her to like the edge of the seat, because I was standing outside the Blazer, and I had to pull her where her bottom was almost not hanging off, but almost at the edge of the seat.
So just going back to that last answer, you had said that when you started having intercourse, her body was slightly moved. Could you just re-give us your answer of what that means?
It was more towards the edge of the seat, the side of the seat. That way I could get to her. Because if she was farther up in the seat, I wouldn't have been able to reach her.
So when you say she was closer to the side of the seat, that's the side of the seat that's closest to the rear passenger door?
Correct. Towards the outside of where the door was open at, because I was standing up outside the door.
Where were your feet?
Don't remember if they were on the street or on the curb. I think they were on the curb, but I can't say for sure.
So at this point, I'm assuming her pants were off?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember if her underwear were off?
I believe they were also. I don't remember seeing them or remember them getting in the way.
What about your clothes? What are you wearing at this point?
I still have my tank top on, undershirt, and my pants are down around my ankle area.
Again, I don't want to belabor the point or get into too much detail, but would you describe this as, I guess, gentle intercourse?
No, sir.
Do you remember whether or not you ejaculated?
No, sir, I didn't.
When you were having intercourse with Nicole in the, I guess, positions that you've been describing, remind us again, was your head in the vehicle or outside the vehicle?
Little, depending on what was going on at the time, it was in somewhat for a little bit, and it was outside also, because that was the main reason for pulling her to the edge, because it was hard to get up in the vehicle at the same time. So that's why I pulled her to the edge, and I was holding on to her legs while I was outside the vehicle.
So, at that point, everything was going smoothly?
Yes, sir.
You were having intercourse with her?
Yes, sir.
What ended up happening?
The next thing that I remember, apart from us having intercourse, was literally waking up on the ground outside the truck, laying in the grass curb area.
I just want to make sure I get you correctly. So you remember having intercourse, and then you remember waking up on the ground.
Right.
You don't remember, I guess, any in-between time there?
No, sir.
When you say you were laying on the ground, do you remember where your legs were?
The predominantly part of my body was laying on the grass area, but my legs and feet area were like on the edge of the curb / in the street, I guess you would say, right there at that edge.
And where were you in relation to the vehicle?
If the vehicle's this way, back of the vehicle, the door's right here, I was laying like right here.
Okay, so I could kind of see your hands there. Were your legs under the vehicle?
No.
Where did you say they were?
Like on the grass curb area. The grass curb area is here. This is the grass curb area, and then the vehicle's right here.
Okay.
Mr. Burch, I'm just trying to make a good record. When you demonstrated with your hands, are you saying your body was perpendicular to the car?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Right. I think that's what he was demonstrating before about where he was laying in reference to the car. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. And you said your upper body was in the grassy area?
Yes, sir.
So you said basically 1 minute you were having intercourse, and the next you remember waking up in that position. Do you remember why you woke up?
I'm not certain, but if I felt like I was rustled or something, I was hit or something made me aware of my surroundings all of a sudden, and I remember waking up and going, "What in the hell?"
So I guess just to describe that towards us, or for us. We weren't there. What were you perceiving as you were waking up?
At first, I didn't know what was going on. I looked down and I'm laying on the ground and my pants are around my ankles, literally. And I was a little groggy, trying to, kind of put two together, what the hell was going on.
So you noticed that your pants were still down around your ankles?
Right, which was the first thing that made me wonder what in the world was going on.
You made a head movement, like you were kind of looking around?
Right, looking around to try to get my bearings. Didn't know where I was. Wasn't familiar at all with the surroundings around me.
Did you stand up right away?
No, not at first.
What happened at first?
I kind of grabbed my pants and went to kind of move, and that's when I pretty much noticed something was going on behind me.
What do you mean? What did you notice?
Eventually I realized it was a person standing behind me.
Walk us through that from you're coming to, you're scooting forward to pull up your pants, and you realize there was a person behind you. I guess, can you break that down further for us?
What do you mean?
When you were pulling up your pants, did you immediately look behind you, or I guess what caused you to look behind you?
I felt something behind me. Something kind of, I wouldn't say hit me, but nudged me. It made me aware that I was not the only person there.
And you were still kind of gathering your senses at this point?
Yes, sir. It was kind of, I don't want to say groggy, but kind of hazy, I guess, a little bit, kind of still at the point where I don't know what's going on. Like I don't know the environment. I don't know how I get to this point. I don't just naturally wake up with my pants around my ankles normally.
Did you hear anything?
The first thing I heard was, "Don't even fucking think about it." It's the first things I ever heard, the first words I heard.
What'd you do when you heard those words?
I didn't know what to do. Kind of stilled for a second, and that's the main part when I definitely noticed there was, like I said, there's someone standing right behind me. Kind of tried to gather myself together as much as I possibly could.
Did you turn around at that point?
Somewhat. I looked like over my shoulder.
Did you see anything?
I saw what looked like a man standing with a firearm in his hand.
What exactly did you see, as far as you can remember?
It was fairly dark. I saw someone that looked like a hooded sweatshirt. Couldn't really see any faces, just glimpse. Standing behind me, it looked like it was like in this direction, and which appeared to be a firearm in his hand.
Mr. Burch, you were pointing down at a little bit of an angle and holding your hand. What are you referring to?
A firearm in his hand pointing in my direction, directly behind me.
I think the record has been made. Go ahead.
So you coming to, you turned around, you heard what you heard, and that's what you saw?
Yes, sir.
What kind of firearm?
It was a handgun. What kind, I couldn't tell you. It was a darker handgun. It wasn't like chrome or anything like that. It wasn't shiny.
And you were just describing for the record where that was pointing. Was it pointing at you?
In my direction, yes, sir.
So it's not like it was pressed up against your forehead.
No, it was behind me.
As you turn around and see this, I guess, could you tell if it was a man or a woman at that point?
From the voice, from the rough outline of the person behind me, from what I could tell, I perceived it to be a man.
And at that point, I believe you said you couldn't really make out any facial features or anything like that?
It was too dark in the area. Like I could just see, like somebody turns a certain way, how you can get just a glimpse of them, but you couldn't see like their whole face.
How far away was this person, approximately?
I'd say no more than 10 feet, 7 to 10 feet, maybe at the most.
And is this directly behind you?
If I'm this way, they were at an angle somewhat off behind me. Catty corner, I don't know what you would call that, but they weren't standing directly behind me, no. They were off to an angle a little bit.
Would 7 or 8 o'clock be about right, Mr. Burch?
Yes, sir.
And the record reflect that Mr. Burch turned in the direction of about 7 or 8 o'clock in terms of where the person was in reference to him. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. 7 or 8 o'clock, does that mean, I guess, where's that person standing, in the road or in the grass?
They're in the grass area behind me.
What happened next?
Pretty much, I finished roughly gathering myself. I pulled my pants up. Was kind of still trying to pretty much gather myself to figure out like what were my options here. What do I have to do? Then I was instructed to move to the back end of the vehicle.
What do you mean?
I was told to pretty much don't think about doing anything stupid and move myself to the back of where the Blazer was, to the rear of the Blazer.
By the time you were told to move towards the back of the Blazer, had you had a chance to take in your surroundings?
Pretty much so. The close immediate area.
What do you mean when you said you were considering or thinking about your options?
If there was any way I could remove myself from this situation, to be completely honest, if there's anything I could do to get out of harm's way.
What types of things did you consider?
Running, screaming, trying to attack the person that had the firearm.
Did you do any of those things?
I didn't think that it was, I would be able, honestly, to be able to do any of these things without being harmed.
So when you were instructed to go to the rear of the vehicle, you did what you were told?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that for us?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
So you were, I think you said, laying kind of by the open passenger door or the mid of the vehicle
Right.
when you came to? And is that where you were when you were instructed to move towards the rear of the vehicle?
I had stood up, but I was pretty much in that same area. Yes, sir.
So you did start to walk towards the rear of the vehicle?
Yes, sir. I started looked back at the individual, and he motioned for me to move towards the back of the vehicle. The whole time, he still had the firearm pointing in my direction.
Did he move at all?
He moved, as I moved this way, he also moved to keep the distance away, pretty much the same distance, but he moved at an angle as I moved away.
So again, you were using your hands there. My understanding is you were moving towards the rear of the vehicle. He was moving towards the rear of the vehicle with you, but the way your hands made it seem, he was slightly further.
At an angle ahead of me, right, and kept the same distance away from me as I was moving away.
So that individual is doing that, and you walk towards the rear of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
What happened next?
I, looking in my surroundings, were towards the edge of the vehicle, back towards the rear of by the bumper area or that vicinity of the car. That's when I kind of noticed my surroundings.
What do you mean?
I noticed someone or something laying in the back behind the truck or behind the Blazer.
What did you see? I mean, exactly that you remember.
Once my attention got to that area, I looked closer and I realized that it was Nicole laying there.
Was that the first time, I guess, you had seen her since you were having intercourse?
Yes, sir.
Did you know if she was alive or dead at that point?
I didn't know if she was alive. There was a lot of blood on her face, come out of her mouth, on her back, but I couldn't. She wasn't physically moving.
So you first encountered her as you were I guess when you were walking towards the rear of the vehicle, and when you got to the rear of the vehicle, that's when you encountered her?
Right. She was laying on the actual street of asphalt behind the vehicle.
So she wasn't on the grass?
No, sir.
Wasn't partially on the curb?
No, sir.
She was completely in the street at that point?
Yes, sir. She was close to the curb, but she wasn't actually on the curb. She was in the street.
Do you remember if she was face up or face down?
If I remember correctly, she was kind of like laying on her side with her head toward the vehicle and her feet away from the vehicle.
So her feet were, I guess, pointed down Berkeley Road in the direction that you had come from?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Burch, you seemed to indicate she was laying her face was on its left side.
She was laying, her left side was up.
Go ahead, Attorney Stebbins.
What did you do when you came across that?
At first, I didn't know what to do, honestly. It kind of put some things in perspective, I guess, a little bit of exactly what was going on now, definitely. But it kind of freaked me out even farther when seeing this, because she was literally, from when I remember the last time, we were in the car having sex. And the next thing I know, she's literally laying on the concrete right in front of me.
As best you can, keep walking us through that. What happened after you came across that?
The next thing I remember was the person behind me had been saying, the first thing I was coherent to me that I could hear them say was, "Look what the fuck you made me do." but they had said other things. I don't know if it was ramblings. I don't know if it was me in my own head trying to figure out what was going on. It wasn't, but that's the first thing that registered with me that he had said.
Then what happened?
I was pretty much instructed to, or told to pick her up.
Did you?
Reluctantly, yes.
Will you describe how you picked her up?
I had to somewhat kneel down. I slid my arms under her front half, and then slid my other arms under her legs, and kind of stood up with her in my arms.
At this point, were you able to tell whether she was alive or dead?
I wasn't certain, but it definitely didn't look like she was. There was this whole time I hadn't seen any movement at all, or anything that would make me think that she was, alive. I didn't hear any noises or anything like that.
So once you picked her up, what happened?
I was instructed to carry her and put her in the vehicle.
This other person that you've been describing, where was he at this point?
Standing behind me, like I said, a little ways away from me. Firearm still in his hands, pointing in my direction, telling me what to do, but he was off at an angle behind me. Every time I moved, he moved, but kept his same distance away from me. But pretty much almost mirrored what I was doing. He was right along with me.
So did you put her in the vehicle?
Eventually, yes, sir.
Where?
I had to come up, and I put her, sat her in the rear passenger side where the door was open. I put her in there, and then I top half in, and then I moved her legs and feet into a semi-sitting almost position.
Okay. So you position her in there essentially in a way that someone would normally sit in that
Correct.
seat. What happened after that?
I was advised to shut the door, and then I was advised to go around behind the vehicle to my driver's door, and to ultimately get in the vehicle.
Now, George, you say you were advised by this individual. What was their demeanor like?
I would guess the best way to describe it would be threatening, like pretty much forceful, letting me know that this is what I want you to do and you're going to do it. In a way, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Was he loud?
Wasn't extremely loud, but more of a I guess maybe almost like a commanding tone. Like let me know that he was speaking to me and what he meant everything that he was telling me to do.
I believe you said you closed the door once Nicole was in the vehicle.
On the passenger side, yes, sir.
You remember if the window was down?
All of my windows were down.
Okay. So is that front driver, front passenger, rear driver? Those windows were down?
Yes, sir.
When you closed the door, I guess, was Nicole? Did you notice anything when you closed the door?
She kind of, I guess you could say, slouched a little bit more towards the. She was sitting in the rear seat, but she didn't lean against the door. She actually leaned a little bit away from the door, I guess, like almost sliding to the left a little bit.
And you said, I guess, what did you say happened after you closed the door?
I was pretty much instructed to go around the back of the vehicle, around to my driver's side.
Were you specifically told to go around the back?
I was pretty much told to go in the driver's seat. I don't remember if I was told or if that's the direction I picked, but that's the way I went around.
And again, that's what you did?
Yes, sir.
And what did that other individual do at this point?
Stayed, like, so pretty much mirrored the way I was moving, and then came behind me after when I got in the driver's seat, and I believe I shut the door first. I don't recall though. He had got in the passenger seat behind me and shut the door. But I do remember when I was getting in the driver's seat and I looked in the rear, I could see him in my peripheral, like over here, through the window. He wasn't in the vehicle yet, but he was in the process of getting ready to enter the vehicle.
Let me just make sure I heard you right. So you recall that you were seated in the front driver's seat, and through your peripheral, you could see him through the window, and he was still outside the vehicle?
Through the rear window. If I'm like the seats here, if I look like this, you can see the back window, and I could see him in that vicinity right there. He was only a couple feet away from me.
So what did you say happened after that?
Then he ended up getting in the vehicle and sitting behind me, but angled a little bit this way.
So again, I know you're using your hands.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. You're in the front driver's side. I'm sorry, you're in the driver's seat.
Yes, sir.
This other individual gets in the vehicle from the rear driver's door.
Yes, sir.
Before we keep going with that, the front driver's seat is, I guess, set. Let me rephrase that. The layout, or how that seat is positioned, is based on how it was when you were last driving the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And how do you have that? How did you have that driver's seat positioned?
The rear back half of the seat was tilted back a little bit, and unfortunately, I have to drive. A lot of people like to get in and put the steering wheel down some, but with me, I have to put it up some, because if not, my legs rub the steering wheel as I'm trying to drive.
And that's how the seat was when you got into it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you said this other individual got into the vehicle and was not seated directly behind you?
Directly behind me, but off center just a little bit to like the right side, like right here a little bit behind me to my, I guess that'd be 5 o'clock.
So not directly behind you, somewhat closer to the center of that back passenger seat, or back seat?
A little bit over, not center, but moved over a little bit. Yes, sir.
What'd you do once you were in the vehicle?
Again, kind of tried to weigh what options I had at this point. It's completely kind of freaked out a little bit. Didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't have any idea what the situation that was going on was going to entail.
What options were you weighing at that point?
Still was running an option, trying to figure out what my options might be.
Did you have an opportunity to ever see this individual's face?
The first time that I saw the best physical image of this face was when I looked in my rearview mirror.
And when was that?
When I first started driving. Because it's once I started the vehicle, you have your interior lights, and the interior lights were bright enough that I could actually see someone, and I could see the reflection in the mirror, because I couldn't physically turn around and look at them.
And again, at that point, did you know who that individual was?
Never seen him before in my life.
Do you know who that individual is now?
Now I do.
Who was it?
It was Doug Detrie.
So let's keep moving. You both get in the vehicle, and what happens next?
I was told to. I was parked on the right side of the street, and I was told to turn the vehicle around. So I don't recall if it was a Y turn or a U turn, but I turned the vehicle around and went in the opposite direction of what the vehicle was facing.
Did you have your seatbelt on?
No, I actually tried to put it on, and you've seen on movies before and things like that, and the only thing that come to my mind, the only option I had at that time was to wreck the car. And that's when I thought to reach for my seatbelt and put my seatbelt on, and then I was advised, don't even fucking think about it, don't touch it. When I reached up to grab it.
Were you in pain at this point?
I don't recall. It was more adrenaline pumping. I wouldn't say pain. I wasn't aware of it. I was more shaken and adrenaline just in the moment at the time.
Were you bleeding?
Not that I'm aware of, sir. I had blood on me, but I don't think it was mine.
So you turned the vehicle around?
Yes, sir.
So you were heading back towards the way you originally came from?
Yes, sir.
Keep walking us through that, George. What happened next?
I was driving, and while I was driving, I was told where to turn and which ways to go. I remember turning, I don't remember which direction we turned, but I remember, I want to say it was like a four-way, maybe a stop sign or something, and then I was told to turn it, I want to say it was left. Like, I don't remember, to be completely honest. I just remember I was told directions on which way to go and where to turn.
What was this other, well, what was Detrie's demeanor like at this point?
Still behind me, still being forceful, telling me what to do. As far as I could tell, from what I could see from the glancing in the rearview mirror, he still had the firearm on me and was still sitting in that same direction behind me.
While you were driving, did he ever touch you with the firearm?
He nudged me. I can't say what it was that hit me. From what I've seen in his hands, I believe that's what it was, right behind me on this side. But for certain, I can't say.
So he's telling you to turn whatever he's telling you. Go straight, go left, go right.
Yes, sir.
For the most part, were you on a paved street?
Yes, sir. Lined road, paved road.
Were you being given, I guess, strict directions?
Yes, sir.
It was deliberate, direct.
Right, telling me where to turn here. Yes, sir.
Eventually, did you Did you leave the paved roads?
Yes, sir. We made a left turn onto service road, dirt road.
Were there any lights on that road?
Not that I recall, sir.
You said you turned left onto that,
If I'm not mistaken, I believe so.
and that road was not paved?
No, sir. It was. I wouldn't say it was dirt. I don't think it was gravel. I think it was dirt, but it might have had some rocks in it. I remember it wasn't a paved area.
What's going through your mind at this point?
It's not looking good. I'm in the middle of somewhere. I don't know where I am. I have no idea overall what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to do in this situation, and I'm trying to figure out the best way for me to remove myself from this situation, if at all possible.
Once you turned onto that dirt, maybe rocky road, did you continue to travel in a straight direction for a very long period?
I don't believe it was a long period. A couple of seconds, maybe a couple hundred feet, maybe, but it wasn't long.
Where did you go from
I was
there?
told to turn right.
And did you?
Yes, sir.
Could you observe any of your surroundings at that point?
It was mainly dark. I seen some trees, tall grass. I couldn't tell if it was a field or beginning of woods, or really couldn't tell exactly what it was. I know it was. It wasn't city or anything like that. It was a predominantly, grassy, tall trees and things like that area. I could hear crickets and things like that. I mean, that was about it, though.
Because your windows are down?
Yes, sir.
So again, you turned left onto the first non-paved road, then you turned right, and you just described your surroundings when you turned right. Did you keep traveling in that direction?
I was advised, or he had told me, it looked like it was a wooded area farther out, because I couldn't definitely tell for sure because it was dark. But there was taller grass and everything, and I was advised when I turned in to go in and come back around like a big U, pretty much. And when I came around, I was facing out in the direction of the way I came in, but just on like the farther side of the field or area.
So again, you turn left onto the non-paved road, you turn right, you can see what you think are woods up ahead, and as you're traveling in that direction, you then turn the vehicle around?
Right. I came in like this, turned around, and stopped like facing back towards the driveway that I came in.
Why'd you stop?
That's where I was told to stop at.
What happened after that?
I was instructed to turn the vehicle off, and pretty much he had exited the vehicle at the time and told me to get out the vehicle.
Do you remember who got out first?
He did.
Where'd he go when he got out?
Again, stood back, I guess. I guess it'd be more like 8, maybe 9 o'clock behind me. I was in the driver's seat and he was over to the side.
How far away?
He was more towards the back of the vehicle when I first got out.
Then after you were out, where was
He took a couple steps farther back.
So you did turn off the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Did you take the keys with you?
No, sir.
So you step out of the vehicle. He's back at, I think you said 8 or 9 o'clock. Takes a couple steps back when you get out of the vehicle. Then what happens?
I was told to pretty much reach in from the driver's side and grab Nicole and pretty much bring her out of the vehicle.
You said you did that from the driver's side?
I was in the driver's passenger, the back passenger side. Understand what I'm saying? Driver's side, back passenger.
Yes.
So I was leaned in, and she was, by this time, she had slumped over and was more like her top half was leaning towards the center of the back rear seat. It was like a bench seat.
So she was still mostly in the rear passenger seat where you had placed her before?
Yes, sir.
But she had become slumped over towards the center or the driver's side of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And you at that point removed her from the vehicle?
It was somewhat difficult, but yes.
And did you say you did that from the driver's side of the vehicle?
Yes.
So you had to reach from the driver's side over to the passenger side of the vehicle?
Right. The vehicle's not a huge vehicle, but I leaned in the back door and reached over, and it's only a couple feet to rigidly be able to grab her.
Why didn't you go around to the other side of the car?
That was where I was at, and that's where I was told to do it. How he explained, told me to grab her right then and there. The rear door was still open, so I just reached in and grabbed her because he was standing towards the rear of the vehicle.
He was towards the rear of the vehicle, but he wasn't right at the rear of the vehicle?
He was parallel to the vehicle. And I was up here, he was standing back here, I was up here reaching in the vehicle, and he was standing catty-corner from me.
Did you, I guess, how did you get her out of the vehicle?
I had to pretty much grab her arms or under her arm area and pull her across the seat.
Was that somewhat difficult?
Yes, sir.
Why?
It's pretty much dead weight.
Were you eventually able to get her out of the vehicle?
It took me a moment, but yes.
And did you say that the way you grabbed her, did you reach into the vehicle and were you able to pick her up, or did you
Kind of pulled her to the edge, and then I put my arm under her again, and then kind of scooped, kind of carried her again with or she would be in my arms. I guess is the best way to describe it.
So going by your arm position there, it looks as though you're holding basically her entire body at one point.
Yes, sir.
With one arm, I guess, by her upper body, and then where would your other arm be?
Towards her, like knee, thigh area, calf area.
What was Detrie doing at this point?
He was standing behind me with he still had the firearm in his hands, pretty much directing me what to do.
And what was that?
He had backed up and he had told me to come down, and it's like in I don't know if it'd be considered a ravine. It's not like really steep, but it's one form we call them a ditch, but I don't know like what you would call it here. But it's just like a little sloped area, and at the bottom there was tall grass, just a bunch of brush, shrubs, I guess, different types of wild growth.
Were you able to continue carrying her that whole time?
For the most part, it was kind of awkward because when you're carrying someone, and I guess and they know they're being, it's a lot easier to control their weight. But at this point, it was kind of like everything was kind of loose and all over, all over the place. So it was kind of hard. So I was kind of almost stumbling a little bit, trying to keep the balance of it.
Did her position in your arms eventually change?
Eventually, I had to, when I had turned around, I was looking at his direction. I couldn't hold her legs at the same time, so I ended up dropping her legs, but still holding I had my arms underneath her arms or armpit area.
So at some point, I think what you're saying is her feet are on the ground, but you're still holding her by her armpits?
Right, I'm holding her up, and her feet are more, if I'm standing this way, I dropped her feet, and she was kind of we were at a little bit of an angle at I'd say the beginning, of where it starts to go down, just where the ground descends down.
You said at some point you're facing Detrie?
Yes, sir.
What's going on at that point?
He was basically telling me to put her down and put her in that area, or place her in the area where I was, and he was instructing me on what to do.
So if her feet are on the ground as you described, and yet you still have to move her body, are you essentially dragging her?
When I had let her go, he had pretty much stopped, and I was at the area pretty much where I had been instructed to let her go at. I was pretty much in the vicinity of where I was told to go with her at the time. So when I dropped her, I didn't do much moving after that.
And what made you think you were getting into the vicinity where she was supposed to be?
I went to the area where I had been told to go, and he had stopped in front of me in the area, so I was facing him. He was 5 feet roughly, not exact, but he was about 5 feet away from me, 6 feet away from me roughly. And he was in front of me. I'd say he was at 1 o'clock.
Keep walking us through that. What happened next?
Pretty much I was advised to put her down. At this time, he was kind of like looking around motion, kind of, I don't know if he was taking in, if he heard something, or if he was looking like around just to take in what was going on around him, or looking to see if, I don't know if somebody could see us, or what was going on at that time. But that was the motion that he was making at the time.
What happened next?
He was in the vicinity of me, and the whole time I'm trying to figure out a way to remove myself from the situation, or get out of this situation, or what I can do to do it. When I noticed, because up until this time, he had been either in a direction where I could not face him or get to him, or he was far enough away from me, but he was constantly watching me the whole time. or constantly paying attention on my movements and what I was doing. At this time, when I seen him kind of look away or not pay direct attention to me, was when I kind of went like this to draw his attention more to what was going on than to me. And when I did, Nicole kind of flipped over like this way. Her feet were more ahead of her, and flipped over. And when he kind of paid attention to what was going on at that time, that's when I turned, and with everything I had, I lunged at him and pushed him as hard as I possibly could at that time.
Did he fall down?
I don't know. He stumbled backwards. Did he fall down? I don't know, because I broke for it.
What'd you do?
Hauled ass to my car, or my truck.
How far were you from it?
I'd say 10, 15 feet maybe give or take a little bit.
Keep walking us through that. What happened next?
I jumped in the vehicle, started it, and I remember trying to take off, but when I took off, if you slam it down too fast, it doesn't lock and drive. So I actually ended up slamming it down to a lower gear at first, because I remember when I turned off, I came around and went to the dirt road, and I remember it was bucking. I couldn't figure out what was going until I had enough. I noticed that it wasn't in drive. That was the whole reason why I couldn't go, like really go anywhere.
Did you floor it when you got into it?
Not essentially. I didn't stop on the gas. No.
Was there a reason for that?
Just I wanted to be able to take off, and I knew that if you stomp it, I'm in dirt. I don't know I'm gonna be able to take off. Like I didn't. Sometimes it just bogs right down. It's not going to go anywhere.
And then you said, when did you realize that you were in a lower gear and not drive?
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
When did you realize you were in a lower gear and not in drive?
After, because I was facing towards the driveway, so once I really got to the driveway and kind of went at an angle out of there, I couldn't, like you could feel it kind of like it wasn't going like it was supposed to, and that's when I realized, like as I was getting ready to turn off the dirt road, that I wasn't in drive.
Okay. So did you put it in drive?
Yes, sir.
And then did you get back on the paved road?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, what was going through your mind?
A lot of stuff. Fear, adrenaline. Wasn't sure what had just happened. Was somewhat glad that I was out of that situation, but kind of still freaked out, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
So what'd you do next?
I remember eventually I actually lit a cigarette, trying to calm down, because I didn't know nothing. I didn't know my environment. I didn't know where I was, and I just wanted to get out of there. I just wanted to get home or somewhere safe.
So what'd you do?
I actually had to pull out my phone, and the Samsung has a button on it that you press the button and you say, "Hey Google," and then you tell them what you want. And I told them to give me directions on how to get back to 912 South Greenwood.
Do you remember where you were when you asked your phone for directions?
I have not a clue.
Did your phone end up giving you directions?
Yes, sir.
Did you follow those directions?
if you enable it, which I've always had it, it talks to you, so you don't even like have to look at it.
You said you were smoking a cigarette?
I don't know if I still was or not. I remember that somewhere in that time I had smoked a cigarette or was smoking a cigarette. They were in my center console.
You remember doing anything else on your drive home?
What do you mean?
On your way home, do you remember doing anything else while you were driving?
I remember looking over and seeing some stuff that was hers sitting in the vehicle.
Do you remember if this stuff was in the front or the back seat?
I don't remember exactly where it all was. I knew that it was multiple of things. It wasn't just like one item.
What would you do with it?
Honestly, I freaked out and I threw it out the window.
Do you remember which window you threw it out of?
It was the passenger side. Don't remember if it was the front passenger or the side passenger. The Blazer's not that huge of a vehicle, so literally I can reach to the back window.
Do you remember if, I guess, was there a lot of stuff? Did you make multiple throws? Do you remember any of that?
I remember, well, as far as I can remember, I made 2 throws. I don't remember being more than that, but it could have been. I can't say for certain. Like I said, I was completely razzled.
After that, did you, I guess, go home?
Eventually, yes, sir.
What'd you do when you got home?
I went in the house, honestly, and took a shower and washed it. I had blood on me, on my hands and on me from where I carried her.
Did you have blood on your clothes?
I believe so, yes, sir.
What'd you do with your clothes?
I took a shower, ended up washing my clothes.
Was anybody awake when you got home?
No, sir.
Were you bleeding?
Not anywhere that I found, no, sir.
Over the course of this process, taking a shower, doing your laundry, were you in pain?
I noticed when I was washing my hair that that part right here roughly was sore. I wouldn't say in excruciating pain or anything, but I noticed it was sore, like I had bumped my head or something.
Was there a cut?
No.
Were you bleeding?
No, sir.
What'd you do after you got out of the shower?
I went upstairs into my room, and I remember the house that I'm in it's an older house, and there's like plaster stencils on the ceiling, and I remember sitting there just like trying to replay things that had happened over the night and wondering like what in the hell has just happened? What just went on? Trying to just piece it all together. Was it just a nightmare, or just what?
Then what?
Eventually I ended up passing out because everything had, for a while when your adrenaline was rushing and everything was going on, it seemed like everything was moving so fast, but at the same time it was moving really slow, and almost in slow motion. And then once I had a chance to actually sit there for a second, it was just like completely draining. Like everything had just, you feel this overwhelming exhaustion.
What's the next thing you remember?
I want to say it was Ed waking me up, or waking up. Someone hearing a noise or something, waking up.
Okay, and then what happened?
remember Ed saying, "Come on," we had to leave. We had to go and get gas, and then we were heading for the fishing trip.
And that's when you went to Racine?
Yes, sir.
And you went fishing?
Yes, sir.
You didn't call 911?
No, sir.
You didn't call Jordan?
No, sir.
You didn't tell Ed?
No, sir.
You went fishing?
Yes, sir.
Why would you not tell someone what you just went through?
One, I didn't even know who to talk to. I didn't. How do you have a conversation with someone about something like that? Like, what do you say? I grew up an only child, and I've experienced a lot of things that sometimes you just keep them inside, and it just. Now I see that it's completely wrong, and I should have said something or should have done something, but in the time, I kind of imploded and kept everything inside.
Help me understand this, George. Why would you not call the cops?
I was scared to speak to the cops.
Why?
I was on probation.
What were you on probation for?
Grand larceny.
What's that?
It's pretty much simple theft.
So you were on probation for theft of property,
Yes, sir.
and that played into why you didn't speak to the cops?
Yes, sir.
Well, what would have happened? I mean, what were you afraid of?
5 years in prison. At minimum. My suspended time was like it's roughly about 5 years.
Why didn't you tell Ed?
I honestly don't. I don't know why I didn't say anything. I don't know if it was just where I'm from. You don't talk. You don't tell about things you've seen. You don't tell on people. People get killed all the time where I'm from for that. And I feared for my own safety if I would have ever said anything because, like I said, where I'm from, it happens all the time. People go to tell on people and tell things, and they end up dead. They never make it to court. They never make it anywhere. They find them dead.
Did you follow this case on the news?
Yes, sir.
What did you learn from the news?
That the body had been found, and inevitably, or after the next couple of days, that Doug had been arrested.
You still didn't come forward with information?
No, sir. At that point, my reasoning was still somewhat the same, but in my opinion, they had the person that had done it. And I figured that they would see that and they would know that.
When did you learn that Doug was released?
I never did until I was arrested.
George, did you murder Nicole VanderHeyden?
No, sir. Definitely not.
Do you know who did?
Doug Detrie.
I have no further questions. Thanks, George.